Good morning all. My name is Courtney Ford and I'm the Risk Authority Administrator. Welcome to today's webinar, being the Hot Works Initiative Update. As advertised, this webinar is set to highlight the risks posed to premises from hot working operations if not managed effectively. A demonstration of the induction video developed, including the means to capture details, inductees and their certification will also be presented. Before I introduce our presenter, I just want to outline a few housekeeping notes. If you have any technical, IT or sound issues with today's webinar, please use the question panel to the right of your screen and I will do my very best to assist if I can. Please note that during the presentation, all participants will remain in listen-only mode. We encourage you to submit questions at any time during the presentation. I note that your questions will not be seen by other members of the audience and they will be passed on to the presenter and addressed, time permitting, at the end of the session. A reminder that all of our webinars are recorded and will be available to listen again via the past webinar area on the Risk Authority website, along with the presentation slides. And now I'm pleased to hand you over to our presenter for today, Howard Passy.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, as Courtney says, for joining us today. I'm hoping very much that I'm sharing my screen now, and that you can all see my presentation.
Yes, we can.
Which can you just see it in full screen, just like the presentation on the screen, or have you got the secondary screen as well?
I think we've got the secondary screen because we can see the next slide.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm not quite sure what to do about that, but black or unblack toggle subtitles. See all slides. One slide show up to hide presenter view. There we go. What can you see now?
We can see your desktop and the slides.
Okay, this is all working seamlessly, just as we'd hoped. Let's see whether that will make any difference. Nope. Okay, one moment, please, boys and girls. Let me just sort this out. Quite sure why it's playing this way. It is. Okay, I'm not quite no idea what's happening, I'm afraid, but something's not working the way I would like it to. I'm just going to unshare my screen. Let's try that. Is that any better, Courtney?
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Brilliant, thank you. Right, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Try and crack on, but thanks very much for the intro, Courtney, and again a warm welcome to this this Hot Works webinar. I'm going to focus, I suppose, potentially on the work that we've been doing over the past year or so in trying to meet the challenge of improving, I suppose, knowledge, understanding and competence of those undertaking hot work, in an effort to drive down the number of hot work incidents that that insurers are seeing. This is a piece of work that's been sponsored entirely by Risk Authority. So the work we've been undertaking has been to to try and drive down these kinds of incidents, to try and avoid people working stupidly, and being more aware of their environment, the circumstances, the arrangements that are required in terms of managing hot work effectively, with a view, as I said, to reducing the numbers of hot work fires, and also, if and when they do occur, the potential for them to do a significant amount of damage. As much as this clearly is an appropriate way of working, I do like to think that they've actually done their calculations and knew that it was a 3-to-1 ratio required in order to support the weight of that one gentleman that's doing some form of work around the window. But you can never be entirely sure with these things. So following a meeting of interested individuals or interested insurers from the Risk Authority membership, we came up with this as our Hot Works project program, and it was to achieve a number of, I suppose, a number of things in real terms. There were lots of ideas discussed at the meeting, lots of options made available, and we scheduled some work in, looked at the various options that were available to us, agreed with the working group exactly what we should be looking to tackle, and then moved on from there. And this slide here really just shows what it was we chose to press on with support from the membership. The first was to create an up-to-date site induction video. So we're aware that many organisations manage hot works reasonably successfully, but these tend to be larger organisations, main contractors, and some smaller contractors, and other large organisations where hot works might be a feature of their day-to-day activities. However, for an awful lot of organisations, they have no means whatsoever for controlling hot works. They have no understanding of the risks that it's likely to present to their buildings, to the people that work there, and to the contents of those buildings. And so what we were looking to achieve was videos that we could distribute free of charge to enable people to implement some training when people join or first join them on site to undertake some form of hot work. The second phase was to look at how we could deploy those videos effectively in a way that would make it easy for the end user to be able to use it, because of course, you know, we can distribute DVDs, we can distribute videos, whether that's electronically, whether we do it online, whether we do it with physical, you know, memory sticks or DVDs. That's certainly not a problem. But what we were hoping to be able to achieve would be a way of somehow understanding or being able to check with a particular client that they've been implementing the videos, and that they were taking steps to ensure that those who were coming onto their sites had gone through some form of training. And so we've created a deployable site induction software kit, which contains the induction videos, and I'll be showing you a short film in a moment, which just shows you how that functions. Phase 3 was to update the existing hot work training video that we have in the form of a DVD and make that completely freely distributable. At the moment, FPA and Risk Authority publish a DVD on hot work risks, which we sell, but the intention with this particular product is that we will make it completely free of charge. Clearly there is some element of cost or ongoing cost in terms of reproducing them, but we're looking at how we might be able to do that as cheaply and as effectively as possible. The fourth phase, and this is something that wasn't discussed in a huge amount of detail at the original meeting, but we did touch on the role of thermal imaging in providing or improving hot work safety. And so we are at the moment in discussion, and Jim is developing a proposal for doing some research, and I'll touch on that in a few moments, just to give you a heads up as to the kind of things that we're looking at, because clearly thermal imaging does have a role to play, but as we'll be aware, there are some pitfalls that we need to be aware of to make sure that if we are going to promote it as an appropriate means for ensuring safety during and after hot work operations, that it's going to act in the way that we expect it to, and provide us with the reassurance we'd hope for. Phase 5 was to develop a hot work app aimed at what should have been done, or as we put there, what is being done, as a means of, I suppose, witnessing the fact that the right steps have been taken, rather than it being an all singing, all dancing tool for generating hot work certificates. Then, as you're aware, FPA deliver hot work training, and I'll be touching on that in a few moments. And we also produce guidance through RC7, the Joint Code of Practice, and various other handbooks. And we'll also be looking to revise those so that they touch on what we've been, you know, what we've been developing in advance of that. Certainly in terms of thermography, the induction toolkit and the use of the app and such like. So we'll be touching on each of these items as we go through. So what I'd like to show you now is just a short video that's been put together that shows how the Hot Work site induction software works, and we'll give you a glimpse at some of the video. I didn't think it was appropriate for us to sit and watch the video during this presentation from start to finish. It's probably 15 minutes that you can fit in and around your days at some other time. And for those of you engaged in risk authority work, hopefully you will have received the link from the email that was sent round, I think middle or early last week, which takes you directly to the videos for you to review, so I understand. Obviously, the videos have already been through the process of review, and all of the comments that we received back from members of the working group have been implemented as far as we're able to. So I'm just going to let this little video run. There's no sound associated with it, so you won't be able to hear anything during it, but there are captions on the screen which describe what's going on. If necessary, I'll interject here and there and add a bit of commentary, but I'm just going to put this on and let it run. Oh, he says. Let's get back. So I think, as I was saying earlier, it's not necessarily about trying to tackle those organisations that are already managing Hot Works effectively. It's just more about capturing those where they have nothing in place at all. We try to make it very simple. It will be deployable on a simple PC with a printer and a camera attached, and the software easily installed, as you'll see through the process here that's being shown. So once the program's actually working, there is an administrative area that the organisation can start to configure. It enables them to ensure that they can use their company logo, and they can set the site name, the contact details, the expiry time for the certificate that will be produced, and the number of questions that they want within the question set. Because the post watching the videos, you'll be asked to complete a short quiz. And as you can see at the bottom there, the software can be built to hold any insurer. It says Livy there, it should say livery, I'm afraid, but yeah, so it's possible to have your own deployable versions of this particular tool, so that you can have it badged up to suit yourself. So once that's all been set up, and the back office area is started, then the individuals who are undertaking the work can enter their details and start to work through the process. We've tried very hard to keep it as simple as we can, not wanting to make it too complicated, make it nice and easy for people to use. I think this is the, people have turned up on site to get on with some work, and the last thing they want, I suppose, is to be delayed any further. But most organisations recognise now that there is some form of induction before they're allowed to do anything safety related. So in addition to putting the individual's name and contact details in, they can also take a photograph and use that photograph, which will be reproduced on the certificate at the end, and then they can move on directly to watching the hot work permit video. You'll see here that a lot of this has been skipped through very, very quickly, but a few elements left showing the video just to give you a bit of a feel for what it looks like. But films are all completely remade. I've got a couple of case studies in at the beginning, only very, very short, and they don't tackle the issues in any detail. The videos also include some graphics options, as you can see here, or elements, should I say, just to diagrammatically explain what needs to be done. And as you can see from the controls, you can play, you can pause, you can increase the volume or decrease the volume as you need to, but you can't skip through the video. You have to watch it all. So once you've finished watching the video, you're then taken to a short quiz. We have a pool of questions. Some of them are mandatory and will appear in every quiz. Doesn't look like whoever's doing this is really paying much attention to the questions, if I'm honest, but they're just flicking through it to give you a view to how it works. But as you can see there, they only got 4 out of 10, and so they have to go back through the process again, watch the video. This time they have an opportunity to speed things through if they wish to, but then they still have to finish the quiz. And clearly a more considered approach to answering the questions this time round. And once this is finished, we'll see what the outcome is at the end of the process. So the quiz is completed, they pass the test, and then they have an opportunity to view their certificate, and they can also print the certificate. So as I said right at the beginning, our vision is that for an organisation can set up a standalone printer with a standalone PC, and they can run this induction package very, very simply and very, very easily, and it will take yes, it will take care of everything in terms of providing a suitable induction for anybody doing any form of hot work. As I mentioned earlier on, there is a back end to this, which will allow the site owner or the site manager to keep a check on who's completed the training, when they completed it, show copies of the certificates and such like. So they themselves can check the validity of any of those people that have been through the training package. And you can just see there, it will produce in addition to copies of the certificates, it will also create a simple spreadsheet with all the relevant details in there. And so if that particular organisation or individual returns to the site at a later date to do more hot work, as long as it was within the last 12 months, then they won't be asked to repeat it. But for that particular organisation, as you can see, they chose to set a 12-month term on it. And as the notes say there, the toolkit can be deleted from PC very, very simply in the same way as you would tackle deleting any other piece of software from your computers. So nice and simple. Okay, and that's it. That just gives you hopefully suitable run through that just shows you how that toolkit is going to work. It's self-contained, it's simple, it's comprehensive, it contains a quiz, it has an administrative back office function so that it can be managed effectively, and it is customizable. So you can have an insurer logo on there. The organisation who are deploying the toolkit can also have their own logos on there, their own logos on the certificates, etc., etc. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And as I said, a link was sent out last week, and if it's something you're interested in, you want to review it, then please feel free to follow that link. If you haven't seen that information, then I'm sure if you drop Courtney a line, she will forward it out to you so you can have a look at what's there. And if you have any comments or have any questions or queries, then please feel free to forward them through. I think we're planning another working group meeting in a week or two's time just to review that feedback, and hopefully by the end of that we'll be in a position to be able to launch this fully and formally. So that's the that's how that particular product works. One of the things that we have also looked at has been, as I mentioned in the introduction, is the role that thermal imaging might have to play in ensuring a degree of safety. I'm sure that many of us have come or run across some of these small thermal imaging cameras, some that can be attached to your mobile phone, and other phones that enable you to use that kind of approach during the work. Needn't necessarily be something that is used before or during the work necessarily, but certainly in terms of providing an effective fire watch post work, I think it offers lots and lots of opportunities. So we've been having discussions internally and with one or two insurers who I know that some have already started to look at the use of thermography in a bit more in anger. But obviously there is a number of things that we need to address, to understand and overcome. So we're just looking at the moment at a proposal for doing some simple research that will just enable us to understand some of these issues that I've listed here in a bit more detail. So the impact of strong sunlight on temperature readings, how does that impact or affect where there is the potential for smouldering fires or residual heat? How is strong sunlight going to impact on that, and can we still rely on thermal imaging to give us a sensible reading and a suitable indication that there's a problem that needs to be addressed, or alternatively that everything's fine? Need to consider the reflectivity and emissivity of certain coatings, that they may also have an impact on temperature reading accuracy. At the moment we really don't appreciate how that might impact. There might be line of sight limitations, which is why the NFRC safety torch guidance was put together, because although they recognise that thermography is something that can be used, it may have limitations in certain circumstances. We'll need to compare some of the existing devices. I'll show you some. Well, the image you can see there is from the Fleur 1 Pro, but there are other types of devices, the Fleur C5, which is a new model, and we'll just have to compare and see whether they all work effectively. And then the S60, S61 phones incorporate a Fleur IR sensor, so we need to understand as to whether we have a similar level or degree of accuracy in those handheld devices as we would do with some of the other standalone products, as it were. Also, issues associated with camera specification. Clearly it needs to be easy to use, it needs to have a good battery life, it needs to be robust, potentially have Bluetooth or Wi-Fi connectivity unless it's part of or attached to a device which already has that. We're considering the option for developing a training video for individuals who might be using thermography, and we can tie this back into the training that I'll be talking to you about in a little while. And we're also considering whether there's there are two phases to this work. Do we need to look at something that is quick and is going to tell us whether we're really going to get some useful feedback, particularly when it comes to the use of thermography on roofing, which seems to be where some of the more significant issues arise, and clearly where some of the more significant fires have had the greatest impact. So it may well be that we'll break the work down into two phases, and we'll just look at the potential for the use of thermography and whether it's going to be effective to use in all applications, and then on the basis that it is, maybe look in a bit more detail at some of these other issues listed here at the moment. Just a couple of images there that were taken during the making of the Hot Works DVD, and this is from the FLIR 1 camera. You can see a very simple image. That was a concrete block that was used as almost as a podium, I suppose, to stand a piece of work on while the hot work was being undertaken. And this is just a little video that shows the camera in use as a video, because it can be used either to take stills or it can take video images. And so you can see, in general terms, it's quite sensible, but at certain times you do get some hazing of the image, where the camera takes time as you move it to recalibrate itself almost, to provide a more accurate picture of the temperature gradients across the different items. But you can see the quality of the image is really quite exceptional. You know, you can see virtually everything, even the writing on some devices, on some pieces of equipment. So it does have potential, but again, as with all things, we need to understand it better, and we probably also need to consider requirements in terms of training for people who are going to be using these devices to make sure they're using it effectively. That's just an image of the device that was used. It attached to the bottom of an iPhone, and you know, it drained the battery quite quickly, I have to say, and hence one of the research considerations is battery life. But yes, that was the device we used, and it worked very well. It certainly gave us the kind of feedback we were anticipating, albeit we weren't necessarily expecting any significant issues, because the work was being managed effectively during the making of the film. So beyond that, and once you know, moving on to the later phases of this particular stream of work, was a thought of developing an app that people can use. And we've had some long conversations and discussions about what that app should be looking to achieve and looking to do. We looked at existing offerings that were out in the market, and I also ran across some bespoke versions when working with a couple of contractors who had their own products developed, not necessarily to manage the hot work process, but certainly to be able to witness and understand exactly what works were going on and where, evidenced by the fact that there was a hot work permit available for review if that was necessary. You may be aware that FM had an app, and there were some others which we reviewed, as I said, including the bespoke app utilised by one main contractor. We did take some time to consider who the audience for this app would be. Was that going to be for the hot work operative? Was it going to be for the supervisor? Was it going to be there for both? Were we looking at developing something that was going to be all singing and all dancing, or were we going to look at something that was a little more practicable, easier to develop, and maybe also going to give the level of assurance that's required in terms of ensuring that the work was being done effectively, almost regardless to a certain degree of whether a hot work permit was being used or whether it wasn't. But clearly, if somebody's going to go to the expense and the time and effort of using an app, they're clearly going to be already working with the working within the hot work permitting scheme. And this will also be something that we'll pick up during the development of revision of our training programs as they stand at the moment. So our focus ended up on us looking to evidence best practice. So producing an app which would enable an individual, those engaged in the hot work process, to be able to show through geotagging, time and date stamping, and the taking of photographs that they had taken all the necessary steps to ensure that the workspace was clear of combustible materials and was safe to work in before the work started, could evidence that they had suitable portable fire extinguishers in place, evidence the fact that there was a fire watch available during the work, evidence the fact that the area had been cleared of combustible materials, that holes and flaws and voids had all been considered, etc., etc. And then post hot work, being able to, again, to use the app to show that they had maintained a fire watch, they'd been back at whatever intervals were required post work to check for potential hot spots or anything burning, and used thermography in order to identify any areas that could be hidden but may still present a risk. And so that's the approach we're looking to take, rather than trying to create an app which people might try to use on a mobile phone or a tablet, which offers a risk assessment, offers creation of a hot work permit, is probably going to prove to be too difficult and too clunky to use. And there may also be significant issues in terms of hosting and administration once that system was in place. And so, similar to the reason why we've gone from a completely standalone deployable induction toolkit, which the end user is able to administer, and we're taking exactly the same approach here. So provide an app or produce an app which will allow somebody to evidence the fact they've done what was expected of them, that they can prove they've done what's expected of them if they are challenged, and that information could be stored potentially locally rather than on a server, because the difficulty we would have, and this is not too dissimilar to some of the discussions that I had with the filmmaker during the creation of the videos, is that if we're going to try to ensure that we have an accurate record of all those people that have completed the training and have a certificate, that is going to create a significant administrative burden on the organisation, and is going to cost money, and is going to draw from the research fund that we have on an annual basis, and that's probably not best use of those resources, really. So that's where we're heading with that particular initiative towards developing an app. We've already done much of the work in terms of describing what we're looking to achieve. We're already in conversations with a developer in terms of what the outcomes and outputs will look like. I'm sure some of you will be aware that FPA already offer what we call the FPA Hot Work Passport scheme. This scheme was originally implemented in 2007 and was at the request of Tesco. As you can see there from the statistics, Tesco had been suffering an increasing number of fires as a result of hot work. It was causing significant disruption and significant cost to repair. And they found that these hot work fires were being caused during both refurbishment works and on some of their new build projects, and also just during general maintenance. And they were looking to FPA to come up with a solution that would that would help resolve that for them. And clearly, being Tesco, they were looking for a solution that for them would potentially be cost neutral. Well, as an organisation, as I think you know, FPA is member of CFPA Europe, we're Confederation of Fire Protections Associations. So this is an organisation which provides an opportunity for like-minded organisations based across Europe, and there's also an international and an Asian version, but to meet on a regular basis and talk about specific issues. There are guidelines produced by CFPA Europe, best practice guidance, a bit like our risk control documents, really, and they also specify a number of different training courses, and those training courses are recognised as being applicable throughout Europe, not just in the country that they're delivered in. So For example, there is a Hot Works training course, and every country that runs Hot Works training ensures that what they're delivering meets with the criteria for that particular course, very similar to the CFPA diploma, which is another one of their courses, which I'm sure some of you are more familiar with. And so, having worked in that environment, we understood that certain countries have a different approach to managing risk, and certainly within the Scandinavian countries, they've had a law in place since the 80s which says that if you're undertaking any form of hot work, you must be trained. And these are just a couple of slides that I've pulled together from some quite old statistics, but it proves the point very, very quickly. In 1988, in Finland and Sweden, 20% of all fires were as a result of hot working, 79% from other causes. Following introduction of the Hot Works training scheme, or the Hot Works Passport, and the legislation which underpinned it, as you can see, that reduced really quite significantly. You can also see from this graph, this is fire losses, or covers fire losses, and the statistics are from Finland, and you can see that at the point the hot work training started, the cost associated with hot work fires has dropped really quite significantly, particularly when you follow the 5-year average line. So we knew that there must be some benefit in implementing a training approach to ensure that people were more competent. And so we developed a Hot Work Passport scheme, very, very similar to the approach that's used in Scandinavian countries, albeit the volume of people we've trained and the throughput far lower, because there's no specific legislative requirement for it at the moment. And although we recognise that insurers support it, it really needs to be supported by employers and organisations who are employing contractors to come in and do this kind of work for them, because it's them that have the opportunity to impact here. So we spent some time developing the course with employers and contractors. It's a 1-day course. There is an assessment at the end of it. Those who complete it successfully are given a unique ID and a Hot Work Passport card, credit card size, same sort of thing, which is valid for a period of 5 years. And so for anybody who wants to go onto a Tesco site, whether that's to one of their existing stores, or whether it's during refurbishment or new build work, they will only be permitted to do hot works on that site if they have a Hot Work Passport. We've been delivering the training to supervisors, hot work operatives, contract managers, maintenance staff, because clearly there's a huge number of people who need to be involved in that process. One of the problems we found right at the start of the scheme was that although the hot work operatives and the contractors they work for recognised the need for them to have been through this training, they were arriving on site and nobody was asking to see their card or to prove that they should, that they were competent to and to do the work and could get on with it. And that's why we needed to start upskilling other people within the Tesco stores environment to make sure they were absolutely clear on the requirement and could start enforcing it, which we did. These are just a few statistics. Since we started delivering the training in 2007, we've trained well over 3,000 delegates from well over 220 different contractors, and I'm pleased to be able to report that for Tesco's, they now report that the number of hot work fires and the costs associated with hot work fires has dropped to virtually a negligible figure. And so we're now working with other organisations. I know that Asda and various other stores, plus some other larger businesses, have taken up with this scheme in order to try and to reduce the losses that they were seeing. And we're hoping very much that with the backing of insurers that we'll start to see more traction in terms of this training. Of course, we'll need to adapt that training to ensure that it covers off all of those issues that we want to see in there now. For example, the use of thermography, which is not there at the moment. So that might become a fundamental part of the training going forward. It may also be that we'll be providing people for a fee with the equipment they need, and potentially the training they need to be able to use that equipment successfully, understand what they're looking at and what the results are. For those of you who've been in and around Risk Authority for long enough, you'll be familiar with RC7, risk control recommendations for hot work. We just been through the process, or about 6 months ago, of making a slight tweak to this document to bring it into line with the requirements of the updated HSG 168. And although we know what the new guidance is going to say from the HSE, they haven't actually published it themselves at the moment. But we have guidance out there already, and again, that will need some updating to make sure that it covers off issues associated with thermography, for example, in sufficient detail, and also refers away to the app and to the induction site video, which people will be able to use from there. But there's also a number of other bits of guidance that we produce as an organisation. There's an Fpa Risk Authority handbook on the management of hot work, which covers much of the same issues, but goes into a bit more detail. We also have an existing DVD on hot work risks, and this is what I referred to earlier on in the presentation that we're in the process of updating now. The filmmaker has the revised script. We're using the new films that we produced in order to underpin it, but there will be a bit more detail in this particular DVD than in the induction videos, because we wanted to keep the induction videos as short as possible, really, so that didn't impact too much on a working day for somebody joining a site, whilst at the same time with a DVD we have an opportunity to spend a little more time, not a huge amount more, but a little more time around some of the I suppose peripheral items, or spend a bit more time on some of the core issues that individuals need to address. And we also have a DVD on fire safety on construction sites, which I anticipate we will over time get round to updating as well, so that it properly mirrors in terms of the hot work elements what we're saying in the other DVD and the induction video. Joint code of practice for fire prevention on construction sites. Again, you'll be aware this contains a fair amount of information on hot working. It also contains a hot work checklist and a hot work permit templates. This is in the process of being updated at the moment. We're just engaged with the joint publishers on some of the changes that we've proposed. Looking forward to hearing back from them shortly. But again, there's lots of guidance out there, and these are the kinds of documents that we will need to update to make sure that they all singing off the same hymn sheet. I did mention earlier about thermography and the risk control working group. I'm the convener of that particular working group for Risk Authority. We're approached probably about a year and a half ago now by the UKTA, UK United Kingdom Thermography Authority, and this is just a couple of slides I've taken out of the presentation that they gave to us at the time. And they were looking to develop a competent person scheme for electrical thermography in particular, and the reason for that was that they were aware that there were lots of new devices coming onto the market that were cheap and available to consumers very, very easily, and that they'd run across a number of instances where contractors were using thermography but weren't necessarily understanding what they were doing with it, or the impact of what they were trying to achieve, because first and foremostly you need to understand how the products work, you need to understand what kind of information they're giving you, and you also need to have maybe a better understanding of some of the electrical supplies and electrical equipment and how it behaves and performs, because some things, some elements and some devices are designed to run at a certain temperature, and if you're unaware of that, you may be immediately highlighting problems which really don't exist. So this was just some of the issues that they highlighted to us in terms of their concerns, and why they were really keen to work with Risk Authority in developing this competent person scheme. And of course we were delighted and said we'd be happy to work with them to help them develop whatever it looked like. We met with one particular individual who was on one of the working groups for the organisation. Shortly afterwards, the chief executive for that organisation left and a new chief executive joined, and they seem to have different priorities, should we say, and were looking to pursue, I suppose, other work streams, and the potential for developing a competent persons scheme was put on the back burner. We did communicate with them, did say, look, we were still keen to, to work into this. The response I got back was a bit of a brush off. I was told to keep an eye on their website for further updates. So, I have kept in contact with the individual that contacted us initially, and we continue to speak on a regular basis, and this work is starting to develop a bit more traction now within the UKTA. So I'm hoping that we'll be back in a position where we can actively support them in developing a decent scheme. But clearly, in terms of the subject matter for this particular webinar, we'll also need to talk to them about the use of thermography for hot working operations and how it can be used most effectively, because I think they might be able to give us some really good pointers in terms of ensuring that we're promoting the right approach, and we're going to get the kind of results that we want from the use of the cameras going forward. A couple of other issues I just wanted to touch on. 11:45, we're not doing too badly. Some of you will be familiar with the flame-free equipment that has started to come onto the market. The Risk Control Working Group have had some demonstrations of some of this kit probably about 18 months ago. This is made by an organisation called Imperial Thermal Engineering. I'll show you a short video in a moment if I can get that to work effectively for us. I don't think any of these images will actually play. But these are electrical devices that don't use any form of gas in order to generate heat, and can be used for drying, sealing, and they also have, the bottom right-hand picture is what they call their E-pot, which is a bitumen warmer heater, which again runs off electricity and avoids the use of a propane cylinder or propane cylinders up on the roof down on the ground, hopefully, to power the equipment. Move on to the next slide. Now I tried to insert a video here from YouTube, but it worked very badly, or should I say it didn't work at all. So let me just see if I can play a video for you, which shows you a little of how it works. Courtney, let me know if you can't see that properly. Again, there's a little sound with this, just a bit of background music, but you can see the device. This particular video is about a year old now, I think, and the product has moved on quite significantly since this time. And clearly the individual doing the work isn't necessarily minded to safety in terms of the boots that they're wearing, which I have flagged up to them. But this is just a video which gives you an indication of how the kit works. It's been developed entirely in the UK, so it's a UK product, and I know that there are other types on the market, but this is just here to show you how well the device actually functions. I'm going to skip through some of it because there's only so much of this you can watch, but this was just a demonstration to show that despite the significant amounts of heat being generated by the torch itself, and it will dry things quickly, it's not sufficient to actually ignite paper. This is a demonstration using petrol. Not quite sure who gave them permission to set light to their roof, and I doubt very much whether they spoke to the insurer, but this is just an indication that they've used exactly the same product, poured some petrol onto a roof, set light to it, or the first time just to prove it's petrol, and then this time are using the hot air blower or the drying tool, but showing you that the temperatures, despite the fact that they will do the work, there's insufficient heat being produced to ignite the vapors given off by the petrol that's been poured on the roof. And this is just a demonstration of the seaming tool that they have. So again, it's using electrically driven heat blown, and you can see it being applied here. As I said, the products have developed on from this since this film was made, and now the tool can be used single-handed. You don't actually need to run a roller down the back of it. The device has a roller attached to it, which will provide the pressure to create the seam or the seal once the bitumen's been warmed. and they've also been able to show that the device will work effectively on all kinds of materials without necessarily the need for preheating, which is also a bit of a boon. Again, I'm just going to flick through some of this because you don't need to see it. Here again, we're just using the device to heat and provide an overseal for the product itself. Okay, I'm going to stop that there. That probably shows enough. I just need to stop it playing somehow. There we go. And I'll go back to the presentation. This was just a little video of something that somebody sent to me not so long ago. These are individuals trying to deal with a fire in a bitumen pot, and demonstrates the requirement and the need for training, not just in the use of the equipment, but also for this individual, the effective use of a fire extinguisher. Trying to use a powder extinguisher, it looks like, to extinguish a fire in the boiler. No idea whether they've tried to turn the power off or tried to turn the gas off first and foremostly, but at the moment the approach they're taking is completely ineffective. So there are others coming in now to try and tackle the fire, but these individuals clearly have no understanding of how fire works, how things burn, and what the right approach to extinguishing fire is. Recognising that even opening that is just going to lead to reignition, clearly wasn't in their mind whatsoever. The phrase is mad as a box of frogs, I think, but that's the kind of issue that we're trying to deal with here. These are the kinds of problems that we need to overcome. That's just an image of a similar device that they were using on the same site, and the approach it was being taken to burning some of the bitumen out of a bucket. The e-pot device also comes with what I think they call it an e-bucket, but it's an electrically powered bucket which will in which you can transport bitumen. And just one other point before I shut up. For those of you working closely within the fire and insurance industry will know that following the fire at Grenfell, there's been significant work going on to try and improve standards of competency, and that's been one of the drivers for changes within the legislation moving forward, to the competency of the individuals engaged in building design, building management, risk assessment, and those sorts of things. I just wanted to flag up something that was brought to, or was actually included within the Building a Safer Future report that Dame Judith Hackett did starting immediately after the Grenfell fire, because she makes reference in quite some detail to the need for competency, and there is both a formal element to that and also an informal element. But she makes specific reference in this report to the Hot Work Passport that we've been utilising or implementing for a number of years now, recognising that it has an impact, recognising that it's a sensible approach and a proactive approach to reducing and driving down risk, and actually validating it as a right way forward. So in terms of the work that we're doing, not only are we looking to drive down and support insurers in reducing the numbers of fires and reducing the losses associated with it, but we're also meeting a legislative requirement to a certain extent, and seem to be supporting the government in what it's trying to do in developing competence, promoting competence of all individuals involved in safety, right throughout the construction process. So that's it from me. I seem to have finished a few minutes early, which is unusual for those of you that know me. But yes, Courtney, I think I'll hand back over to you, but thank you all very much for listening, and I hope you found it interesting and useful. As I've said, if you're interested in reviewing the work that we've done so far, and would like to feedback, if you haven't already been given access to the information, then I'm sure Courtney would be happy to provide that information to you, to give you that opportunity if you'd like to. So Courtney, I'm going to shut up now and hand back to you.
No problem, thank you. We only have 1 or 2 questions that have come through, but if we finish up ahead of time, if there's anyone that would like any questions answered, now is probably the best time to do it. With regards to this presentation, this webinar presentation will be made available within the next couple of days. Once we get the video uploaded and sorted out, it will be uploaded to our website within the next couple of days.
Okay, well, looks like everyone's gone quiet on us, but you know, as an organisation, you know where we are. I think you know how to get hold of us if you do have any questions. So if there is anything you'd like to ask, then you know, please feel free to contact us at any point, and we'll do what we can to help you out. But once again, thanks very much for participating. I hope you found it interesting, and see you all next time.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Courtney.